High Chancellor Vren stood in the council chamber and stared at the giant screen on the wall. Another red dot blinked and died. Another colony gone dark. 3 worlds lost in just 2 weeks. The Krillian raiders were getting bolder with each attack, and the Velcon Empire had no way to stop them. "We need to ask for help," Councilmember Thress said. His blue skin looked pale with worry. "The outer colonies have no defense left." "Help from who?" Vren's voice was tired and heavy. "The Confederation said no. The Hive Collective wants us to surrender our freedom. We have nobody." Far below in the communications tower, Navigation Officer Zek worked through old files and ancient records. He was young, only 20 cycles old, and he wanted desperately to find a solution. The computer archives held thousands of old frequencies from when the Empire was strong and expanding. That was 3,000 years ago, back when the Velcons explored new worlds and helped primitive species develop. Zek's hands shook as he searched through the data. Maybe one of those old worlds had grown strong enough to help. The Empire had visited hundreds of planets and left monitoring equipment on worlds with basic life. Surely some of those species had evolved and built civilizations by now. He found a frequency labeled Sector 4478. The file was old and partly damaged. The note said, "Developing carbon-based life detected, but nothing more." The world had been surveyed long ago and then forgotten. But it was something. It was a chance. Zek set up the distress signal and aimed it at those coordinates. He used the universal emergency frequency that all spacefaring species were supposed to monitor. The message was simple and clear. "Velcon Empire under attack. Send help. Coordinates attached. We will pay well for assistance." He pressed the button and the signal shot out into space, moving faster than light. Zek felt a small bit of hope for the first time in weeks. He logged the transmission in the system and went back to his other work. He never checked which world he had contacted. He never looked at the full file. If he had, he would have seen the planet's name, Earth. He would have seen the classification, Primitive Level 2. He would have seen the survey date, 9,000 years ago. The signal traveled through space for 3 days. On the edge of human territory, the Deep Space Monitoring Station Copernicus picked up the transmission at 3 in the morning. Lieutenant Ben Harris was drinking coffee and watching his screens when every alarm went off at once. "What the heck?" He put down his coffee cup fast and checked the readings. "Commander Drake, you need to see this right now." Commander Helen Drake walked over quickly. Her eyes went narrow as she read the message. "It's in Trader Standard. Old version, but I can read it." "Someone is asking for military help," Ben said, pointing at the star map. "The location is 300 light-years away. They're using emergency frequencies." "Do we know these people?" "No, ma'am. But the computer has an old flag in the system. Some aliens were watching Earth about 9,000 years ago during the Stone Age." Helen's face went hard. Someone had been watching Earth when humans were still living in caves, watching and taking notes. She touched her communication badge. "Get me Fleet Admiral Richards. Priority Alpha." 6 hours later, every government on Earth knew about the message. 12 hours later, the decision was made. Humanity would answer the call. They always answered. The meeting point was empty space 40 light-years from Earth. The location was coded Lima 7. Captain Jake Patterson stood on the bridge of the ECS Valiant and watched ships appear from jump space one after another. Carriers appeared first, huge and powerful. Then came battleships with enough weapons to crack planets. Destroyers moved into formation like sharks. Cruisers took up positions. Supply ships and medical vessels filled in the gaps. The humans brought everything they had. "Final count, Commander?" Jake asked. 473 combat ships, sir, plus support vessels. Total people, 312,000. All this for a distress call. Those are the orders, sir. When someone asks Earth for help, we show up ready for anything. Ambassador Lisa Monroe sat in her office on the diplomatic ship Harmony and read the first contact rules for the 15th time. Her team included language experts, culture specialists, and trained negotiators. They would try to make peaceful contact first. The fleet was just there in case things went wrong. Dr. Amy Clark walked into the office with a computer tablet. She was the head language expert. "Ambassador, I studied the distress signal. The way it's written tells us something. These people are desperate. Their civilization is getting weaker. So they really need help," Lisa said. "Yes, but there's something else." Amy showed her the signal analysis. "They sent this on a frequency they haven't used in thousands of years. The message wasn't aimed at anyone specific. They just broadcast it into space and hoped. They don't know who they called." Lisa understood now. "Exactly. And based on their old survey of Earth, they think we're still hitting each other with stone tools and living in caves." Lisa looked out the window at the massive fleet floating in space. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. "This is going to shock them pretty badly." Fleet Commander Kyle Sherman spoke to all the ships from the bridge of the supercarrier Enterprise. "All vessels, this is Commander Sherman. We jump in 30 minutes. Here are the rules. We are answering a distress call. Our job is to help and make peaceful contact, but we go in ready for trouble. If the situation is dangerous, we protect ourselves and we protect them. Earth is ready. All ships confirm." 473 ships sent back confirmation signals. "Navigation, plot the course. Let's go meet our neighbors." The Velcon Border Patrol saw them first. Sensor Officer Crane was watching the outer warning buoys when his equipment went crazy. "Commander, I'm reading huge space distortions. Multiple ships jumping in." Patrol Commander Vess turned around fast. "Is it the Krillians?" "No. Wrong type of jump signature. I'm counting." Crane's voice got higher with stress. "Over 400 ships. They just appeared at the edge of our system." 400? Vess felt cold fear run through her body. Nobody had assembled a fleet that big in this part of space for 1,000 years. "Who are they?" "Unknown design. Their technology is—" "Commander, their jump engines are better than ours. Much better. Raise defensive shields. Send a message to the capital immediately, and find out who they are." On the Enterprise, Communications Officer Dan Wright worked on translating the incoming message. "Commander, we're getting hails from a patrol group. 3 ships, light cruiser size. They're demanding we identify ourselves." "Open a channel," Kyle said calmly. "This is Fleet Commander Kyle Sherman of the Earth Coalition Fleet. We are responding to a distress signal from these coordinates. We come in peace and we're here to help. Please direct us to whoever is in charge." The translation took a few seconds to process. The response came back in broken trader standard. "Earth? That's impossible. Earth is primitive. You don't even have space flight. Identify yourself correctly." Kyle smiled a little bit. "I promise you we have space flight now. We received your distress call. Are you the Velcon Empire?" A longer pause. "Yes. You're really from Earth? From Sol 3? "Confirmed. We're here to help. How many ships do you need for evacuation or defense?" The Velcon officer's voice was barely a whisper. "How many ships do you have?" "This fleet has 473 combat ships plus support vessels. If you need more, we can request additional forces from Earth." Silence on the channel. Then, "Hold your position. Do not, I repeat, do not come closer. I am sending this information to High Command right now." "Understood. We'll wait here." In the capital city on the Velcon homeworld, High Chancellor Vren got the report and couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Earth? The primitive world from the old surveys?" "Yes, High Chancellor," Zek explained. His voice shook with fear. He had been brought to the council the moment they traced where the signal went. "They received the distress call I sent on the old colony frequencies." "You contacted Earth?" Council member Thress looked terrified. "That world was marked as non-interference. They were barely intelligent when we last checked on them." "That was 9,000 years ago," Vren said slowly. And now they're here with 400 warships. He turned to his military advisor. Fleet Master Core, what do you think? Fleet Master Core pulled up the sensor data on the main screen. His face was serious and worried. Their technology is very good. Jump drives better than ours. Energy readings suggest advanced fusion power ambassador Lisa Monroe's shuttle moved slowly toward the Velcon capital ship. The diplomatic vessel Harmony had been invited to come forward while the rest of the fleet stayed back. This was normal procedure for first contact, though the Velcons seemed more nervous than usual. They've scanned us 17 times already, the pilot said. That's way too many scans. They're scared, Dr. Amy Clark said, watching her instruments. Look at how they're positioned. Their shields are up and they're in defensive formation, but they're not targeting us with weapons. They don't want to fight, but they're terrified we might attack them. Lisa nodded in agreement. Let's show them they have nothing to fear from us. The docking went smoothly. Lisa and her team walked into the airlock wearing formal diplomatic clothes. They carried no weapons. Their hands were visible and open. The Velcons waiting inside were tall with blue skin and 4 arms each. Their eyes were large and showed every emotion clearly. They wore robes that looked ceremonial and important. High Chancellor Vren stepped forward first. Ambassador Monroe, I am High Chancellor Vren. Welcome to the Velcon Empire. His trader standard was perfect, though his accent sounded very old-fashioned. Thank you, High Chancellor. On behalf of Earth and the Coalition, we're honored to meet you. Lisa bowed slightly, copying the Velcon gesture of respect that Amy had briefed her about. We received your distress call. How can we help? Vren gestured toward a conference room. Please, let us talk in comfort. I must admit, your arrival has created many questions. Over the next hour, Lisa learned everything. The Krillian raiders had been attacking for years. The Velcon defenses were failing. Colonies were being destroyed. Officer Zek had sent the distress signal hoping any of the old colony worlds might have developed enough to help. Vren spoke carefully, watching her face for reactions. So Zek sent the signal hoping to reach your former colonies that might have grown advanced, Lisa summarized. But he reached Earth instead. Yes, we did not know your world had advanced so much. Vren's tone was very careful and neutral. Your fleet is quite large. This is our standard response for first contact when answering a distress call, Lisa explained calmly. We didn't know what the situation was, so we prepared for multiple possibilities. Multiple possibilities. Vren repeated the words slowly. Ambassador, forgive me for being direct, but Earth was surveyed as having primitive tribal societies 9,000 years ago, stone tools, cave dwellings, no agriculture yet. Now you arrive with technology equal to or better than ours, with a fleet bigger than any in this entire sector. How did this transformation happen so quickly? Lisa looked at Amy. This was the critical moment. They had discussed how to handle this question. High Chancellor, humanity's development has been very rapid. We achieved industrial revolution about 250 years ago. Spaceflight started 200 years ago. We invented faster-than-light travel 60 years ago. Our expansion has been quick. 250 years? Councilmember Thress spoke for the first time. His voice showed complete shock. It took our civilization 20,000 years to reach industrial capacity from our tribal beginning. Yes, well, Lisa chose her next words very carefully. Earth's history has been marked by significant conflict. We fought each other extensively throughout our development. That competition drove rapid innovation. Conflict. Vren leaned forward in his seat. You mean war? Yes, war. For how long has your species been fighting wars? Amy pulled up a data file on her tablet. Our recorded history goes back about 12,000 years. We have clear evidence of organized warfare for approximately 11,900 of those years. Every Velcon in the room sat in complete silence. They stared at the humans with expressions of disbelief and growing horror. "You have been at war for your entire recorded civilization?" Vren finally managed to ask. "Not continuously at every moment," Lisa said carefully. "But yes, warfare has been a constant presence throughout human development. We've fought over land, resources, beliefs, religion, and sometimes just pride. We developed weapons of terrible destructive power. About 150 years ago, we nearly destroyed our entire species with atomic weapons." "But you survived." "Yes. We learned from that close call. We unified our world. We turned our attention to space instead of fighting each other. We've had complete peace on Earth for over a century now. And yet you maintain such a large military fleet," Fleetmaster Kor asked. "Why keep such strength during peacetime?" Lisa met his eyes directly. "Because we remember what war costs. Because we know what happens when you're not strong enough to protect yourself or help others. The fleet keeps the peace. It also makes sure that when someone calls for help, we can answer properly. Which brings us back to your situation, High Chancellor. You're being attacked by the Krillians. We can help you deal with that problem." 400 ships seems like too many for simple raiders, Vren observed quietly. "We believe in being thorough," Lisa said with a small smile. "Besides, we didn't just bring warships. We brought medical teams, engineers, construction crews, and aid supplies. The military vessels are just one part of the help we're offering. Now please tell us more about these Krillians. We need to understand the threat." Vren explained the situation in detail. The Krillian Confederacy operated about 200 ships across this sector. They raided weak targets for resources and slaves. The Velcon Empire had been peaceful for so long that they had let their military decline. Now they couldn't defend themselves effectively. 200 ships, Kyle Sherman said later when Lisa briefed him. "Spread across how much territory?" "About 40 star systems," Lisa replied. "They have bases, but they're scattered and poorly coordinated." "We can handle that easily. What about Velcon cooperation?" "They're willing to work with us, but they're scared, Kyle. Really scared. Not of the Krillians anymore." "Of us?" "Of course they are," Kyle said quietly. "We showed up with overwhelming force in response to a random distress call. From their perspective, we're either incredibly generous or incredibly dangerous. Probably both." Vren asked me directly why we came, why we sent so many ships for strangers. "What did you tell him?" "The truth. That when Earth receives a call for help, we answer. That we learned the hard way what happens when good people are too weak to stop evil. That we made ourselves strong specifically so we could help others." Kyle looked out at the fleet holding position in perfect formation. "Do you think he believed you?" "I don't know. But he's willing to let us help. The Krillians are raiding another colony in 3 days. Vren is giving us permission to intercept them." "Good. Let's show the Velcons what Earth does to pirates." 3 days later, Captain Jake Patterson positioned his battle group in high orbit around the colony world of Tress 4. 200 human ships waited in perfect formation on the far side of the planet, completely hidden from sensors by the planet's mass. The 6 outdated Velcon patrol ships and 2 ancient orbital platforms held their positions in standard formation. To any raider, it would look like a normal, easy target. "Now we wait," Jake said calmly. The Krillian raiding fleet arrived exactly on schedule. Raider Captain Skarn commanded 37 ships, more than enough to overwhelm any Velcon defense. His species had been preying on the weakening empire for years. The Velcons barely fought back anymore. They were soft, made weak by centuries of peace. "Target the orbital platforms first," Skarn ordered his fleet. "Then we take what we want from the planet's surface." The Krillian ships dropped out of jump space in their standard attack formation. Skarn's sensors showed exactly what he expected. 6 pathetic Velcon patrol ships, and 2 ancient platforms that could barely power their shields. His sensors did not show the 200 human warships positioned on the far side of the planet. "This is Earth Coalition ship Valiant to Krillian vessels." Captain Jake Patterson's voice cut across all communication frequencies. "You are approaching a world under Coalition protection. Power down your weapons immediately and prepare to be boarded, or leave this system right now. You have 3 minutes to comply." Skarn stared at his communications officer in complete confusion. "What was that?" "Unknown vessel, sir. The message is being translated from a language not in our database. They claim this world is under their protection." "Show me." The tactical display updated with new contacts. Skarn felt his blood turn to ice. Over 200 ships had just appeared on his sensors, positioned in perfect defensive formation around the planet. They were larger than his vessels. Their energy signatures were off every scale he had. "Who are these people?" Skarn demanded, his voice rising in pitch. "No match in our identification database, sir, but those are definitely military warships. Advanced technology. Very advanced." Skarn had survived 20 years of raiding by knowing when to fight and when to run. He opened a communication channel. "Unknown vessel Valiant. This is Raider Captain Skarn. We were not aware. 37 Krillian ships opened fire at the same time. Their weapons were designed to crack Velcon shields and destroy orbital platforms. The energy beams and projectiles were powerful enough to tear through standard military defenses. Against human military shielding, they barely registered. The attacks looked like small sparks hitting a fortress wall. "All ships, weapons free," Kyle ordered calmly. "Disable their vessels. Try to minimize casualties if possible." What happened next would be studied in military schools across human space for the next 100 years. The human fleet didn't just shoot back. They demonstrated a level of precision that seemed almost artistic. Railgun rounds accelerated to incredible speeds, surgically removed weapon systems from Krillian ships without destroying the vessels themselves. Energy beams sliced through engine cores with perfect accuracy, leaving the crews alive but completely stranded in space. Electronic warfare teams hacked into Krillian computer systems and shut down everything from life support to communications, then turned the systems back on just to prove it wasn't a random malfunction. The entire fight lasted exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. 37 Krillian ships floated dead in space. Every weapon was destroyed, every engine was offline, but every crew was still alive, sitting in disabled vessels and realizing they had been utterly defeated. Not a single human ship had even moved from its defensive position. They had destroyed an entire raiding fleet without breaking formation. "Raider Captain Skarn, this is Captain Patterson. Your fleet is completely disabled. Surrender immediately, and you will be treated according to our laws of war. Resist further, and we will board your vessels by force. You have 2 minutes to decide." Skarn looked around his command bridge. Every weapon system showed red. His engines were completely destroyed. The hull was intact and life support was running, but his ship was nothing more than a floating box, and those human ships hadn't even moved. They had crippled his entire fleet without seeming to make any effort at all. "We surrender," Skarn said quietly. His pride was gone, replaced by the cold certainty that he had attacked something far beyond his understanding. High Chancellor Vren watched the entire engagement from the Velcon observation post on Tress 4. He stood perfectly still for a long time after it ended, just staring at the tactical display. 4 minutes, Fleetmaster Kor finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They completely dismantled an entire raiding fleet in 4 minutes. They destroyed every weapon and every engine without killing a single Krillian. High Chancellor, that level of precision and control is actually more frightening than simple destructive power." "Why is it more frightening?" Council Member Thress asked, still staring at the screen in shock. "Because it means they could have destroyed those ships just as easily," Vren answered before Kor could speak. "They chose not to kill. They chose to capture and judge instead. These humans fight like natural predators, but they think like judges and philosophers. That combination is terrifying. Ambassador Lisa Monroe's voice came through the communication system. "Hi, Chancellor. The raiding force has surrendered peacefully. Captain Patterson is taking them into custody. He asks if you would like Velcon representatives to participate in the tribunal proceedings." "Yes," Vren said quietly. "Yes, we would." "Ambassador, I think we need to have a longer conversation about Earth's real intentions in this region of space." "Of course, High Chancellor. I agree completely. It's time we were fully honest with each other about everything." The tribunal was held 3 days later aboard the Enterprise, with both human and Velcon officials sitting in judgment. It was a deliberate gesture of partnership that every Velcon who heard about it understood and appreciated. Raider Captain Skarn stood in restraints before the panel of judges. Captain Jake Patterson presented the evidence methodically. Documented raids going back 5 years, civilian casualties numbering in the thousands, stolen resources worth millions. The Velcons provided their own records, showing a pattern of patient suffering and unanswered calls for help. "The evidence is absolutely clear," Lisa Monroe said, speaking as the senior human representative on the panel. "Raider Captain Skarn, you are guilty of piracy, murder, and crimes against sapient beings under both Earth Coalition law and Velcon Imperial law. However, our legal system requires that we offer you a choice. Give us the locations of all Krillian raiding bases and cooperate fully with our investigation, and you and your crews will receive life imprisonment instead of execution. Refuse to cooperate and face the maximum penalty allowed under law. You have 1 hour to make your decision." After guards escorted Skarn out of the chamber, Vren turned to Lisa. "You would actually spare their lives, after everything they've done to our people?" "If they cooperate and give us useful information, yes. We believe strongly in justice, High Chancellor, not in revenge. Their information will help us protect other innocent species from future raids. That has value." "You plan to stay in this region?" Vren asked the question carefully. Lisa nodded. "If you'll accept our presence, yes. The Coalition would like to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Velcon Empire. We're interested in trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, and mutual defense treaties. We'd also like to help you rebuild your damaged colonies and restore your defensive capabilities." "Why would you do all this?" The question came from Council Member Thress. "What does Earth actually gain from helping us?" Dr. Amy Clark spoke up from her seat. "High Chancellor, may I be completely frank with you?" "Please do. I prefer honesty. Earth is very young compared to your civilization. We've only been traveling in space for 200 years. We have advanced technology and significant military strength, but we seriously lack wisdom and long-term perspective. Your people have existed as a civilization for thousands of years. You've built a culture based on peace, art, philosophy, and science. You've survived and thrived without constant warfare. We desperately need to learn from that kind of achievement." "You want to learn about peace from us?" Vren found this deeply ironic. "You, who command the most powerful military fleet in this entire sector of space." "Especially because we command that fleet," Lisa said with complete seriousness. "High Chancellor, humanity came very close to destroying itself completely. We know exactly what violence costs. We know what war does to civilizations. We've built this military power not because we love fighting, but because we fear what happens when you're not strong enough to protect yourself and others. We know from bitter experience what evil people do when good people are too weak to stop them. But strength without wisdom is just brutality waiting to happen. You can teach us the wisdom we desperately lack." Vren studied the human ambassador carefully. "And in return for this wisdom, what do we receive? We protect you from external threats. We help you rebuild what was damaged. We share our technology in areas where it's appropriate and safe. And, Lisa smiled slightly, we deal with the Krillians permanently. Deal with them how exactly? Fleet Commander Kyle Sherman entered the conversation. High Chancellor, according to the information Raider Captain Skarn provided, there are approximately 200 Krillian vessels operating throughout this sector. They're based out of 7 primary locations. The Coalition fleet is fully capable of handling that problem. We're going to visit each raiding base and offer them exactly the same choice we offered Skarn. Surrender peacefully and face proper justice, or resist and be destroyed. Based on what happened at Tress 4, we expect most of them will choose to surrender. And if they don't choose surrender, then they'll learn very quickly why nobody attacks Earth Coalition protectorates twice. Vren was silent for a long moment, thinking carefully. Ambassador Monroe, Commander Sherman, I must discuss this with my full council before we can give you an official answer. But I have one question I need to ask first, just for my own understanding. Of course, High Chancellor, ask anything. When Earth sent this enormous fleet in response to our distress call, did you know anything at all about us, our military strength, our technological capabilities, whether we deserved help? No, Lisa admitted honestly. We knew absolutely nothing except that someone, somewhere, needed help. Then why send so many ships? Why risk so much for complete strangers? Lisa and Kyle looked at each other briefly. Kyle answered first. Because that's simply what we do, High Chancellor. When someone calls for help, Earth answers that call. We learned this lesson the very hard way, through centuries of failing each other and watching people suffer because nobody came to help. Never again. If you send a call for help, we come. All of us, with everything we have. Even for strangers who watched your world from a distance and did nothing to help your development? Even then, Lisa said firmly, the past is the past. What really matters is what we choose to do right now, in this moment. Vren felt something shift in his understanding. These humans were genuinely offering help with no strings attached, no hidden demands. They had responded to an accidental distress call with overwhelming force, not to conquer or control, but simply to help. I think I'm beginning to understand your species, Vren said slowly. You're terrifying and comforting at the same time. That's probably the most accurate description of humanity anyone's ever given, Kyle said with a slight smile. 2 weeks later, the Krillian raiding bases began surrendering. The human fleet visited each location with the same overwhelming force and the same simple message, surrender or be eliminated. Most chose surrender. The few who chose to fight were disabled with the same surgical precision shown at Tress 4. Within 1 month, raiding activity in the Velcon sector had dropped to 0. The Krillian Confederacy's leadership sent formal communications requesting a ceasefire and negotiations. High Chancellor Vren stood with Ambassador Monroe on an observation deck, watching human construction crews working alongside Velcon engineers to rebuild the orbital defenses around Tress 4. Exactly right, Lisa said, pleased that Vren understood. Peace through strength. It's not a perfect system, but it works for us. The Krillian bases have all either surrendered or been neutralized, Vren continued, looking back at the construction work. Raiding activity in this entire sector has completely stopped. In 1 month, you've accomplished what we couldn't manage in 300 years of trying. You could have done it yourselves, Lisa said gently. You chose not to. You chose peace and diplomacy over violence. That's actually very admirable. It turned out to be weakness, apparently. No, Lisa shook her head firmly. It's civilization at its best. You built an entire culture that doesn't automatically default to violence as a solution. That's incredibly rare and precious in this galaxy. We build weapons and maintain fleets so that civilizations like yours don't have to. Vren thought about this perspective for a long moment. The council voted yesterday morning. The decision was unanimous in favor of joining the coalition treaty. The Velcon Empire would be deeply honored to become part of your alliance. Lisa smiled warmly. The honor is entirely ours, High Chancellor. Welcome to the coalition. We're glad to have you as partners. There is one small matter I'm curious about, Vren said after a pause. Officer Zek, the young fool who accidentally sent the distress signal to Earth. What do you think I should do with him? Promote him immediately, Lisa suggested without hesitation. He saved your entire empire. He did it completely by accident. He had no idea what he was doing or who he was contacting. The very best first contacts in history usually happen by accident, High Chancellor. Besides, think about what he actually did. He sent a signal out into the dark unknown, hoping desperately that someone, anyone, would answer and help. And someone did answer. That takes real hope and courage. Hope is valuable. Courage is valuable. Those qualities deserve recognition. Vren made a sound deep in his throat that might have been laughter. Very well. I'll promote the young fool who accidentally summoned the most terrifying military response in all of recorded galactic history. We strongly prefer to think of it as the most helpful military response in recorded history, Lisa said with a grin. Ambassador, may I ask you something of a personal nature? Of course, High Chancellor. Are you personally frightened of what your own species has become? 400 warships responding to a call from complete strangers, the capacity to wage war across hundreds of light years, weapons powerful enough to crack planets open. Does any of that scare you? Lisa was quiet for a moment, looking out at the stars beyond the window. Every single day it scares me. But you want to know what scares me even more than that? What? The thought of not having that power when someone desperately needs help. The thought of hearing a distress call from innocent people and being unable to answer because we're too weak. Humanity learned a terrible lesson over thousands of years of history. Evil and cruelty flourish when good people are too weak to stop them. So we made ourselves strong. Not for conquest, not for glory or power, but specifically so that when someone sends a signal into the dark, we can answer that call, even if they sent the signal by complete accident. Especially if they sent it by accident, because those are usually the people who need help the most desperately. Vren looked at this human ambassador, this representative of a species that had clawed its way up from primitive tribal warfare to interstellar power in what amounted to a cosmic eye blink. A species so deeply scarred by violence that they had built the capacity to wage war across the entire galaxy, specifically and deliberately, so they wouldn't have to use it. I think I finally understand, Vren said slowly. Earlier I asked why you sent the signal. But the real question is why you answered our call, and the answer is almost terrifyingly simple. What's that? Because you're human, and humans help people, even complete strangers, even former observers who did nothing to help you develop. You help because that's what you've consciously decided you are as a species. You're the people who answer the call for help. Lisa nodded slowly. We've been on the other end of that unanswered call too many times throughout our history. We've watched people suffer because nobody came to help. Never again. When someone asks Earth for help, the sky fills with ships. We just hope our response isn't too frightening for the people we're trying to help. Oh, it's absolutely terrifying, Vren assured her seriously. But in the best possible way. In the way that makes evil people think twice and makes good people sleep safely at night. In orbit, high above the planet, the combined human and Velcon fleet conducted joint training exercises. Human tactical officers taught Velcon crews new defensive formations. Velcon navigators shared centuries of stellar cartography data with human explorers. On the ground, human engineers worked side by side with Velcon construction teams, sharing techniques and learning from each other. In the diplomatic quarters, Dr. Amy Clark sat with ancient Velcon scholars and historians, learning about civilizations and events that spanned thousands of years. And throughout the entire sector, the word spread quickly from system to system. The Velcons had found powerful allies. The humans had arrived, and these humans answered calls for help with fleets large enough to block out the stars. Some species found this news deeply comforting. Others found it absolutely terrifying. But everyone in the region understood the clear message. The balance of power had shifted dramatically. There was a new major force among the stars, one that had learned both the terrible horrors of war and the precious value of peace through bitter experience. And when they received a distress call from anyone, they came prepared for anything. Officer Zek, newly promoted to communications director with a fancy office and actual authority, sat at his primary station and thought about the signal he had sent by accident just 2 months ago. He had expected nothing to happen, or at best maybe a few outdated ships from some forgotten colony world that had developed basic technology. Instead, he had accidentally summoned a fleet of hundreds, a species of warriors who fought like demons but helped like angels. A civilization that had nearly destroyed itself completely and then chose to dedicate itself to protecting others instead of conquering them. He had sent one desperate distress call into the empty darkness of space. The sky had filled with answers beyond his wildest imagination. And the galaxy would never be quite the same again. Captain Jake Patterson stood on the bridge of the Valiant, reviewing the sector patrol schedule. Human ships now worked regular patrols alongside Velcon vessels, protecting trade routes and colonies. It was peaceful work, but important work. "Captain, incoming message from Fleet Command," his communications officer reported. "Put it through." Fleet Commander Kyle Sherman's face appeared on the screen. "Captain Patterson, we're receiving another distress call. This one is from the Terran sector, about 500 light-years from your current position. Unknown species, appears to be under attack by an aggressive neighbor. How quickly can you assemble a response force?" Jake checked his tactical board. "I can have 60 ships ready to jump in 4 hours, sir. Request permission to invite Velcon participation. They know this region better than we do." "Permission granted. Coordinate with High Chancellor Vren. And Captain?" "Yes, sir." "Same rules as always. We go in ready for anything, but we lead with peace. Show them what the Coalition stands for." "Understood, sir. We'll make you proud." 4 hours later, a combined fleet of 60 human ships and 12 Velcon vessels jumped toward the new distress call. The Velcons had volunteered immediately when they heard. They understood now what it meant to answer a call for help. Ambassador Lisa Monroe prepared another first contact package, this time with Velcon cultural advisors working alongside her human team. Dr. Amy Clark studied the new language in the distress signal, finding patterns and structure. "What do you think we'll find?" Amy asked. "Someone who needs help," Lisa answered simply. "That's all we need to know for now. The details can come later." High Chancellor Vren watched the combined fleet depart from the observation deck of his flagship. Council Member Thress stood beside him. "We're sending our ships to help strangers now," Thress observed. "Just like the humans do." "Yes," Vren agreed. "We're learning from them. The strong have a responsibility to help the weak. The capable have a duty to protect those who cannot protect themselves. These are old Velcon values that we had forgotten. The humans are helping us remember who we used to be." "Do you think this new species will be frightened when they see our fleet?" "Almost certainly," Vren said with something that might have been a smile. "But they'll also be grateful. Fear and gratitude can exist together. And eventually, the fear fades, while the gratitude remains. That's what the humans have taught us." Far across the galaxy, on Earth itself, Fleet Admiral Richards reviewed the expanding map of Coalition space. New species were making contact every month now. Some reached out peacefully. Others sent distress calls. Either way, humanity answered. 6 months after first contact with the Velkons, the galaxy looked very different. The Earth Coalition had grown from a single species to an alliance of 7 different civilizations. Each new member brought unique knowledge, technology, and perspective. And each had their own story of how the humans had answered their call. The Mendra were an aquatic species whose ocean world was being poisoned by illegal mining operations. They sent a distress call hoping someone might notice. 80 human ships arrived within a week, along with environmental specialists and legal experts. The miners were arrested, the oceans were cleaned, and the Mendra joined the coalition with deep gratitude. The Prixus were insect-like beings whose colony ships had been stranded by engine failures in deep space. Thousands were dying from lack of resources. They broadcast emergency signals in every direction. The humans heard, responded with rescue ships and supply vessels, and spent 2 months ferrying the Prixus to safe worlds. The Prixus never forgot that kindness. The Yorn were a warrior culture, proud and strong, who had been conquered by a larger empire. They sent no distress call because their pride wouldn't allow it. But the humans heard rumors, investigated, and offered help anyway. Together, they liberated the Yorn homeworld in a brilliant campaign that cost minimal lives. The Yorn, who respected strength above all else, swore loyalty to the coalition immediately. Each species had expected very different things when they first encountered humanity. None of them expected what they actually got. Overwhelming force married to genuine compassion, terrible weapons wielded with careful restraint, and the absolute certainty that when you called for help, someone would answer. Ambassador Lisa Monroe now headed the entire Coalition Diplomatic Corps. She spent her days traveling between worlds, negotiating treaties, resolving disputes, and teaching other species the principles that made the coalition work. Dr. Amy Clark had become the head of the Xenolinguistics Department, managing a team of specialists from 6 different species. High Chancellor Vren had become something unexpected, a close friend and trusted advisor. His centuries of experience balanced humanity's youthful energy. His wisdom tempered their aggressive instincts, and his people's cultural achievements reminded the humans why they fought in the first place. "We have a problem," Vren said during one of their regular meetings. Lisa could tell from his tone that it was serious. "What kind of problem?" "The Highborn Collective has sent a formal communication. They're demanding we cease expansion into what they consider their territory. They're threatening military action if we don't comply within 30 days. Lisa pulled up the information on her screen. The Highborn Collective was a powerful empire, controlling nearly 200 systems. They were old, technologically advanced, and notoriously aggressive toward younger species. How many ships do they have? Approximately 3,000 combat vessels, according to our intelligence. Their technology is comparable to ours, possibly better in some areas. And they've been expanding through conquest for over 2,000 years. They're experienced at warfare on a scale we've never attempted. 3,000 ships, Lisa repeated thoughtfully. That's substantial. The Coalition has maybe 800 combat vessels total, even counting all member species. We're badly outnumbered. And Ambassador, I must be honest with you. The Velkons are not ready for a war of this scale. We've only just begun rebuilding our military capabilities. Neither are the Mendra or the Prixus, Lisa agreed. This would fall primarily on human forces. Which is exactly why I'm worried. Lisa, can Earth actually face an empire this large? I know your species is formidable, but 3,000 ships... Lisa stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Vren, I need to tell you something. Something we haven't shared with the other Coalition members yet. What is it? The 473 ships that responded to your distress call. That wasn't Earth's entire fleet. It wasn't even close. Vren felt his blood chill. How many ships does Earth have? The exact number is classified, but I can tell you that we maintain ready fleets in 12 different sectors. We have shipyards on 15 worlds producing new vessels constantly, and we have reserve forces that can be activated within weeks. If the Highborn Collective wants a war, Earth can bring 10,000 ships to this fight, maybe more. 10,000. Vren sat down slowly. In 6 months? That's impossible. We've been building continuously for 60 years, Vren. Humanity learned one lesson very well. You can never be too prepared. We build ships the way other species build houses. It's what we do. And you never told us this because we didn't want to frighten our allies. Because we're trying very hard not to be seen as conquerors or tyrants. We want to be partners and friends. But if the Highborn want to threaten the coalition, Lisa's voice hardened. Then they're going to learn what happens when you threaten Earth's friends. The communication to the Highborn Collective was simple and direct. Fleet Commander Kyle Sherman delivered it personally via long-range transmission. This is Fleet Commander Kyle Sherman of the Earth Coalition to the Highborn Collective. We have received your demands regarding territorial expansion. We reject those demands completely. The Coalition expands only through voluntary membership and mutual defense treaties. We threaten no one. We conquer no one. But we protect our own with absolute commitment. If you choose military action against any Coalition member, you will face the full response of Earth's fleet. We recommend peaceful negotiation instead. You have 30 days to respond. The Highborn response came within hours. It was arrogant and dismissive. The Highborn Collective does not negotiate with primitive species. Your pathetic alliance will dissolve before our power. We are sending a demonstration fleet to your border. Submit or be destroyed. We have crushed 1,000 species over 2,000 years. You will be the next. Kyle read the message twice, then called an emergency meeting of all Coalition leadership. They're sending what they call a demonstration fleet, Kyle explained. Best intelligence says approximately 500 ships. They'll arrive at our border in 2 weeks. This is their way of showing us we can't win. Can we win? Asked the Mendra ambassador, her aquatic suit bubbling with nervousness. Yes, Kyle said simply. But I want to be very clear about what this means. If we fight and win, the Highborn will send everything they have. This becomes total war. Are all Coalition members prepared for that? The Yorn representative slammed a fist on the table. We fight. The Highborn are bullies and slavers. Someone must stop them. The Prixus delegate clicked its mandibles in agreement. They have threatened our friends. We stand together. Vren spoke last. The Velkhans were a peaceful people for millennia. We avoided conflict at almost any cost. But we learned something from the humans. Sometimes peace requires the willingness to fight. Sometimes protecting the innocent means standing up to evil regardless of the cost. The Velkhan Empire stands with Earth and the Coalition. Lisa looked around the table at the representatives of 7 different species, all willing to risk everything for a principle. Then we're decided. We face the Highborn together. Kyle, prepare the fleet. Already done. We're assembling the largest battle force in human history, and this time, we're not holding back. The demonstration fleet arrived at the border system exactly on schedule. 500 Highborn vessels in perfect formation, powerful and intimidating. Their commander broadcast a message to all Coalition worlds. Witness the power of the Highborn Collective. Submit now, and we will be merciful. Resist, and we will demonstrate why we are the supreme power in this region of space. The Coalition response was waiting for them. 1,500 ships appeared from jump space in a coordinated arrival that took exactly 47 seconds. Human vessels formed the core of the fleet, but Velkhan, Yorn, Mendra, and Prixus ships filled the formation. It was the Coalition's entire combined military force, assembled and ready. But they weren't alone. Behind the Coalition fleet, space itself seemed to tear open as more ships continued to arrive. And arrive. and arrive. 5,000 human vessels of war, fresh from shipyards across Coalition space, jumped into the system in waves. Battleships that could crack moons, carriers launching thousands of strike craft, destroyers moving in perfect wolf packs, cruisers bristling with weapons that bent the laws of physics. The highborn commander stared at his tactical display in complete disbelief. This is impossible. Intelligence said they had 800 ships total. Sir, they have over 6,000 ships in this system, and more keep arriving. All vessels withdraw immediately. Send message to High Command. Tell them. The commander's voice failed for a moment. Tell them we were wrong about these humans, but it was too late to run. Highborn vessels, this is Fleet Commander Kyle Sherman. You came here to demonstrate power. Allow us to return the favor. Power down all weapons and shields. You will not be harmed if you comply. Refuse, and we will disable your fleet like we've disabled every other hostile force we've encountered. You have 3 minutes. The highborn commander was a veteran of 100 battles. He knew when he was beaten. All ships, power down. Comply with their demands. 500 highborn warships surrendered without firing a single shot. The message that went back to the highborn collective was simple. We encountered the humans. We were completely wrong about them. Do not engage. I repeat, do not engage. They have more ships than we thought possible. This is not a species we can defeat. The highborn High Council met in emergency session. They reviewed the tactical data 3 times, checking for errors or exaggeration. There were none. 6,000 ships in one system, the High Chancellor said slowly. And their commander implied they could bring more if needed. We have 3,000 ships total, the military coordinator pointed out. And it took us 2,000 years to build that force. How did this species build so many ships so quickly? According to the intelligence reports, they've been at war continuously for their entire civilization. Building weapons is what they do. It's all they know. And now they've stopped fighting each other and turned their attention outward. They're not conquerors seeking territory. They're protectors seeking allies, which makes them far more dangerous than simple conquerors. Conquerors can be reasoned with. Protectors will fight to the death for their principles. The High Council voted unanimously. The Highborn Collective would seek peace with the Earth Coalition. Immediately. The peace negotiations took place on a neutral station. The Highborn sent their finest diplomats expecting difficult bargaining. Instead, they found Ambassador Lisa Monroe, who offered them simple terms. The Coalition seeks peace with the Highborn Collective. We have no territorial demands. We want open trade, cultural exchange, and a mutual non-aggression treaty. You leave us alone, we leave you alone. If you're attacked by external forces, we're willing to discuss mutual defense. That's all we want. The Highborn chief negotiator was confused. You defeated our demonstration fleet completely. You could demand anything. Why ask for so little? Because we're not interested in conquest or subjugation. We want peaceful coexistence. Your civilization has existed for thousands of years. You have knowledge and culture that enriches the galaxy. Why would we want to destroy that? Every species we've encountered either sought to conquer us or feared being conquered by us. You're the first to simply want peace. Then we'll be the first of many, hopefully. The galaxy is big enough for everyone. There's no reason we can't all prosper together. The treaty was signed within a week. The Highborn Collective and the Earth Coalition became trading partners and eventually cautious friends. 1 year after Officer Zek sent his accidental distress call, the Coalition had grown to include 23 different species. Trade routes stretched across hundreds of systems. Cultural exchanges happened constantly, and the galaxy was measurably more peaceful than it had been in centuries. High Chancellor Vren stood with Ambassador Lisa Monroe at the dedication ceremony for the new Coalition headquarters. It was built on a neutral world, designed with input from every member species. We've come a long way from that first frightened meeting, Vren said. We have. I remember you being absolutely terrified of us. I was terrified. 400 warships appearing out of nowhere would terrify anyone. I'm still slightly terrified of you, to be honest. Lisa laughed. Good. A healthy respect for each other's capabilities is important. Lisa, may I ask you something I've wondered about for a long time? Of course. If Zek had never sent that signal by accident, would humanity have eventually found us anyway? Lisa thought about this carefully. Probably, yes. We were expanding in this direction. We would have encountered the Velkhans eventually, though it might have taken years or decades. Why? Because I believe that signal, that mistake, changed the course of galactic history. If we had met under different circumstances, humanity might have seemed like conquerors instead of saviors. The coalition might never have formed. The Highborn might have crushed us all individually. But because of one young fool's accident, everything changed. You're giving Zek too much credit, Lisa said with a smile. He sent a signal. We chose to answer it. Those were two separate decisions. But that's exactly my point. He had hope that someone would answer. You had the compassion to respond. That combination of hope and compassion is what built all of this. Vren gestured at the headquarters building, at the ships from dozens of species in orbit, at the delegates from across the galaxy gathering for the ceremony. Maybe you're right, Lisa admitted. Maybe it all started with a mistake that led to hope, and hope that led to friendship. The galaxy is full of species now who know that if they call for help, someone will answer. The sky fills with answers, and those answers carry both the strength to protect and the wisdom to guide. That's humanity's gift to all of us. It's not just humanity's gift anymore, Lisa corrected gently. It's the coalition's gift. We all carry that responsibility now. When someone calls for help, we all answer. Together. Far away on distant worlds, new species looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. Some sent signals into the darkness, hoping for answers. Some called for help in desperate times. Some reached out simply seeking friendship. And somewhere, always, the coalition heard those calls. Ships prepared for jump. Crews readied themselves. Diplomats gathered first contact packages. Medical teams stood by. Engineers prepared aid supplies. Because that's what the coalition did. That's what humanity had taught them all. When someone calls, you answer. You answer with overwhelming force if needed, but you lead with compassion always. You protect those who cannot protect themselves. You stand up for justice. You never turn away from those in need. The galaxy was vast and often dark, but now, scattered across the stars, there were lights of hope. And those lights grew brighter with each passing day, with each new friend, with each answered call. Officer Zek, now Director Zek, sat in his office and thought about that day 1 year ago when he sent a signal to an unknown world. He had been frightened, desperate, hoping for any help at all. He had received far more than he ever imagined possible. He had accidentally changed the galaxy. Sometimes, he thought, the best things in life happen by accident. You send a call into the darkness, not knowing if anyone will hear. And sometimes, just sometimes, the sky fills with answers. And those answers change everything. The end. We're spreading ourselves pretty thin. Admiral, his chief of staff observed, 400 ships here, 60 ships there. At some point, we won't have enough vessels to respond to every call. Then we'll build more ships, Richard said simply, and we'll train more crews, and we'll recruit our new allies to help carry the burden. The mission doesn't change just because it gets harder. When someone calls for help, we answer. That's not negotiable. Yes, sir. I'll inform the shipyards to increase production. Richards looked at the star map, at all the species now connected by treaties and mutual defense pacts. The coalition was growing faster than anyone had predicted, and at the center of it all was a simple principle: help those who need it. Earth had learned that lesson the hardest way possible, through thousands of years of war and suffering. Now they were teaching that lesson to the galaxy, one first contact at a time. "Your people work incredibly fast," Vren observed. "We've had a lot of practice rebuilding things," Lisa said with a touch of sadness. "We've destroyed and rebuilt Earth cities more times than I want to count." "I've been reading the history files your team provided," Vren admitted. "Your world wars, your atomic age, your near-extinction event. Not our proudest moments as a species. No, but very educational ones." Vren turned to face her directly. "Ambassador, I understand now why you maintain such a powerful military fleet. You're not preparing to start wars. You're working to prevent them. F any protection agreement for this world. We will leave immediately." "Negative." Jake's voice was hard and cold. "You have conducted raids on 7 Velcon colonies in the past year. The Velcons are now under Earth Coalition protection. You have 2 choices, Raider Captain. Surrender for trial under our laws or run. But understand this clearly. If you run, Earth has a very long memory. We will find you eventually." On the bridge of the Enterprise, Fleet Commander Kyle Sherman watched the tactical display. "Captain Patterson is giving them the option to flee?" "Yes, sir," his tactical officer confirmed. "Standard deterrent protocol for first contact with hostiles." "Good. Let's see if they're smart enough to take it." Skarn was not smart. He was proud. His pride had kept him alive and successful for 2 decades. "Trial? You dare threaten the Krillian Confederacy? We have 200 ships throughout this sector." "We have 473 ships in this system alone," Jake replied, his voice absolutely calm. "And we can bring thousands more if needed. Last chance, Raider Captain. Surrender now or run now. Choose quickly." Skarn made his fatal mistake. His pride overruled his survival instinct. "All ships, fire on the nearest human vessel," or maybe something even better. The ship designs are clearly military, built for long combat operations. And High Chancellor. He stopped talking for a moment. They jumped a fleet this size across 300 light-years in perfect formation. That level of coordination means they do this kind of thing regularly. You don't build and maintain a fleet like this unless you use it often. What are you saying? I'm saying these humans are either always at war or they keep this military force ready all the time. Either way, it's disturbing. Vren thought about this carefully. What should we do? Be very careful. If they want to fight us, we will lose. If they want to help us. Kor looked directly at his leader. We need to understand what kind of species brings 400 warships to a first contact.